Time is a capricious and enigmatic substance. Sometimes, it comes to a standstill when we find ourselves in a state of anticipation, turning a snail into a speedster by comparison. Yet, when we are engrossed in a task or captivated by an experience, time sprints forward, leaving us wondering how we got to the end so quickly. At that moment, it seemed to me that time had stopped entirely, and I was at a loss to measure how much had passed since I arrived in this otherworldly place. Emptiness and darkness were the only constants in this space. There was a profound sense of sensory deprivation, no hunger, no thirst, no fatigue. I couldn't even be certain if my eyes were open or closed. Every attempt to call out for help was swallowed by an oppressive silence. Slowly, my senses began to return to me. I realized I was lying on something solid, neither cold nor warm to the touch. I struggled to my feet, as though an invisible force was dragging me down, and when I opened my eyes, the darkness remained unbroken, but off in the distance, there was a faint glimmer, flickering uncertainly like a dying candle. Soon, there were more points of light joining the first. It took some time for me to comprehend that these were not electric bulbs. These were stars, slowly illuminating the void. Could I possibly be in the vastness of space? Yes, in a sense. A voice murmured unexpectedly, jolting me from my reverie. Startled, I glanced around, but there was no one in sight. Yet, I had distinctly heard a voice. Was I losing my mind? What is madness? The voice continued, echoing through the darkness. Each living being has its own perception of normality, and anything that strays from it can be deemed madness by another. Who are you? Show yourself, I shouted, breaking my silence for the first time since my arrival here. My voice echoed in the emptiness, but there was no fear in my heart. Nearby, something began to materialize. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its form indistinct and elusive. Whether it was human, animal, or something else entirely, I couldn't tell. The figure was shrouded in the same darkness that surrounded me, making it difficult to discern its features. I watched as its head tilted to the side, as though pondering something. Perhaps I had stared too long. Excuse me, I'm trying to understand who I'm speaking with. Ah, of course. My apologies. Sometimes I forget that your eyesight isn't as keen as mine. A sudden, loud snap reverberated through the void, and the figure was abruptly bathed in an intense, dazzling light. The brightness was so overwhelming that I winced, shielding my eyes and turning away. Even the stars didn't shine that brightly. A few seconds later, the light began to fade until it vanished entirely. This form should be familiar to you and easy to comprehend. My eyes were still watering as I blinked away the afterglow and looked back at my mysterious companion. Now I could see him clearly. Standing before me was a man in his late 40s or early 50s, nearly 2 meters tall. His face bore a few lines, etched with experience, and his dark eyes seemed as deep and inscrutable as the cosmos surrounding us. He was dressed in an elegant black suit with a black tie, dark trousers, and matching shoes. The whole scene had an almost surreal formality, like a job interview. Between us stood a small table with 2 chairs. Meanwhile, this strange being settled into one of the chairs, took a teapot, and began pouring himself a beverage. Forgive me, but who are you? Are you God? In a sense, yes, he responded with a restrained smile. He poured a full cup of what seemed to be tea, then directed his gaze at me. Though perhaps not the God many envision, but from a certain perspective, yes, I am God. Got it, I replied weakly, feeling a sudden emptiness in my head. So, I'm dead. God, sitting across from me, nodded as he took a sip from his cup. I, still dazed, nodded back and settled into the other chair. The teapot lifted itself in the air through some unknown force and poured a hot drink into the cup closer to me. I instinctively reached out and took the cup. It wasn't tea after all. It was coffee, with milk. The hierarchy of gods encompasses many levels. My companion began unexpectedly. There are demigods, lesser gods, elder gods, higher gods, and ancients. Once, the primordial one existed and divided itself, giving birth to the ancients. I belong to the higher gods. We could be considered kin, though our relatives have long since stopped meddling in the fabric of existence. Why? I asked, desperate to distract myself from the reality that I had left the world of the living. They created entire worlds, populated by various species, humans, and other beings with unique histories. But each of these worlds drained the gods' strength, nearly killing them. Yet the worlds themselves perished. Either the inhabitants destroyed them, or the void did. The gods couldn't interfere directly with the lives of the living. It was a taboo. The god of death advocated for the creation of new worlds. The god of life opposed it, not wanting to witness the death of those he had helped create. The god of earth sided with the god of life, fearing the loss of his brethren. While they argued, the worlds continued to die, and the god of energy took matters into his own hands. He approached the sister of the primordial one, darkness, and offered his life in exchange for power. The god of energy was the most potent of all, but he lacked one crucial ability. In the end, his sacrifice restrained the void and gave rise to alternate worlds, each with its own differences. Two seemingly identical worlds could vary in subtle or significant ways, but the impact of his death was so great that pseudo-worlds began to emerge, worlds you yourselves created. My shocked expression seemed to amuse my companion. All the films, cartoons, books, and even games you've experienced, all these human creations gave rise to pseudo-worlds, worlds not crafted by gods, yet holding the potential to become complete. Why are you telling me this? I interrupted, astounded at my own boldness. How should I address you? As God? Call me Demetrius, to avoid confusion. This was just a prelude, to help you understand the structure of our existence. Furthermore, you humans have always been insatiably curious, and I tried to quell that flame. But from the look in your eyes, you still have questions. Ask away. Rubbing my nose with my finger, a habit I had had since childhood, when I needed to focus, I composed myself, taking a sip from the cup. The taste was pleasant, slightly sweet, and just the right temperature. How did I die? I can't remember my death, nor much about myself. It's simple, you fell asleep and never woke up. That's it. What more were you expecting? Demetrius chuckled. You were just an ordinary person, living in a mundane world. Trust me, your death was peaceful and painless, and you didn't suffer. But things can turn out far worse, I know. It was also, I don't know, unclear. How could I have died? Sure, I wasn't the epitome of health, not an athlete, but I didn't sit around all day eating chips and drinking soda. I didn't even play video games much as an adult, though in childhood, I remember playing consoles, trading cartridges with the neighborhood boys. But life, let's just say, taught me some tough lessons, and I had to adapt. Of course, I had my issues, could swear, smoked and drank, but in moderation. I'd smoke 2 or 3 cigarettes a day, maybe 5 at most, and only drank beer, 1 or 2 cans every 3 days after work. I don't think that would lead to death at 24, especially compared to those who have been abusing 4 years and still stand. And sometimes, you can't do without a bit of cursing. These things happen. The heart stops in sleep, and here you are. What's next for me? Am I going to hell? God laughed, and it seemed his laughter echoed throughout the space, filling every corner. What makes you so different? True, you weren't especially religious, you drank occasionally and smoked, but you were neither a psychopath nor a predator. Though, I must admit, there were times when you entertained thoughts of taking justice into your own hands against those who had committed heinous crimes. But sending you to hell for that? Too harsh, my young friend. Then why am I here? Demetrius. Why me? My companion set his cup down on the table. A snap of his fingers, and a black folder materialized in his hands. Let's start with your second question. Why you? The answer is simple. You meet my criteria. First of all, your death was not violent. You weren't stabbed, shot, or run over by a car, nothing of the sort. I dislike such souls. They tend to be, Demetrius gestured with his hand, as if expressing distaste, unstable. Secondly, you are not tethered to your world. Your parents have passed away. You have no family, only a few friends. Souls like yours adapt more easily to transitions. I flinched when he mentioned my parents. Yes, I remembered. My father died of stomach cancer when I was 8, and my mother followed him 10 years later. She had been ill since not long before my father's death. Sometimes she needed to stay in the hospital or take medications that, while allowing her to live, were harmful to her body. But she managed to work, support me, and raise me until I reached adulthood, and she left to join my father. After the funerals, I didn't want to stay in one place. I found a job, though I can't remember exactly what it was, and traveled frequently for work. Japan, China, Africa, even Australia. I just wanted to fill the void inside me with these trips. Family. I never found anyone to start one with. I didn't see anyone who seemed right. And maybe I wasn't either. People my age loved parties, hangouts, cafes, and nightclubs, while I was more of a homebody. I wanted simple domestic warmth, mutual respect, and love, like my parents had. I kept putting it off, thinking it could wait, someday. But honestly, I don't hold much resentment for dying alone. I think I lived a decent life. Thirdly, you are highly adaptable. You can adjust to the world around you, so even in a difficult situation, you won't descend into panic or madness. Though, in our own way, we all lose our minds when circumstances press us. There are other reasons, but these are the most significant. Like, for example, your name. What's wrong with him? I began. But then a realization struck me. I couldn't remember my own name at that moment, not even a hint of it. Yet strangely, I felt no concern about this. That's what I was talking about. Perhaps you don't recall now, but you always believed that names and surnames are merely strings of letters. Change someone's name, and their character or soul remains the same. Names simply help distinguish one person from another. As for your first question, the folder in his hand snapped shut, and his gaze, fixing me in its sights, seemed to pierce my very soul. I want to offer you a job. What? His words made me let go of the cup, which would have fallen had it not hung suspended in the air. But for the moment, I was hardly concerned about that. Honestly, how often does God offer you a job? No wonder I was in shock. As I mentioned earlier, the ancients no longer intervene in the workings of existence since the demise of one of their own. We, their kin, also strive not to meddle, but we can't merely stand by and watch the problems of worlds without acting. That's why we seek souls who will become our mercenaries. Each high being has different tasks and goals. For instance, one of my brothers favors souls who, in life, prioritized physical strength, even if their intellect was lacking. However, there is one key rule: we do not take the soul of a living person, only on the day they die. Taking the soul of someone who is still alive and may have some time left to live is our taboo. Even if they only have a few hours, Yet, even so, finding the right soul isn't easy, given there are other parameters, and not everyone can endure the transition into our realm. One of the primary duties of these souls is to help save a world in one way or another. There are numerous pseudo-worlds suffering from constant resets. When they reach a certain point, everything is wiped clean, and they reset to the beginning. The people living there are deprived of a normal life. And can we even call it living? And how do your mercenaries avoid this? How do they know what to do? Do you think we simply throw you in and hope for the best? We provide you with a brief about your mission. Despite our status, we don't always know what will be required, so we endow you with grace skills, abilities, weapons. The more tasks you complete, the more grace you receive. Naturally, this can't go on indefinitely. Each soul can hold only a certain amount of grace, and once you reach that limit, you achieve true blessing. Listening to Demetrius, I realized I was in a tricky spot. I felt like a young man drafted into the army and now being sent off to serve. Incidentally, I never served, didn't run, or buy a military pass, just declared temporarily unfit for service. And now, here I was. What does true blessing provide? It depends on you. The higher one smiled. You decide what you want. You can reincarnate in any of the saved worlds or, for example, return to the moment you left it. If the world allows, you can keep part of your grace. In rare instances, you can become a lesser god, a guardian of the worlds you visited. Or you can return to your native world for reincarnation. Unfortunately, even the ancients cannot reverse death, especially yours. What if I refuse the job? Then you will go to the circle of souls and, after cleansing, be reborn anew. I'm merely offering you a job, and I won't be upset if you decline. You're human. You have the right to choose your fate. I closed my eyes and drifted into contemplation. Yes, I'd heard this saying before. In some ways, I hadn't truly believed it. I thought everything was predetermined. Where you're born, how you look, who your parents are. But we do decide for ourselves whether to change our lives or let them be, to be kind, cruel, or indifferent. We choose whether to give up or fight to the end. I was an ordinary person, nothing special. But just because I was more of a homebody didn't mean I didn't crave adventure. That was one of the reasons why I traveled so much, to see new places, experience new cultures. It filled a void and calmed the part of my soul that longed for the unknown. When I opened my eyes, a cup hung in front of me, refilled with coffee and milk. Asking how God knew my preferences was pointless. Clearly, he read my thoughts. I took the cup and took a large sip. "What's your choice?" asked the higher being, looking at me intently. I was filled with anticipation, the same familiar feeling that accompanied preparing for a new business trip. "I'm ready, Demetrius. I'm curious to see other worlds, especially the ones you mentioned, worlds of films, books, and games. I hope you can amaze me." "Oh, believe me, the places will be extraordinary," God smiled. One folder was replaced by another with a quick snap of his fingers. "I have one world in mind already. Just need to iron out the details, and you need to select your grace. But I haven't done anything yet. Why do I get this? Consider it a bonus for your agreement. Shall we discuss the first contract?" So, the first thing you need to do is choose a grace. As you are new to this, many options are unavailable to you because you are still weak. Look through this folder. A snap of his fingers, and the black folder landed on my lap, nearly causing me to drop my cup due to its weight. I decided to open it in the middle. I always opened books that way, curious about how the story would unfold. But the pages were blank, except for the first one. 1 skills, 2 abilities, 3 weapons. It seems I have to choose. I dismissed weapons for now. I don't see the point in carrying arms. A knife can be found almost anywhere, and I don't know how to use a gun. Sure, we played with toy guns as kids, but that wouldn't help me now. Abilities, however, were grayed out and not available for selection. You were an ordinary person from an ordinary world, Demetrius noted. You currently don't have access to about 90 to 95% of what's here, so I've blocked the second option. However, in the worlds you visit, you can acquire new skills or abilities you didn't possess before, if you put in the effort. So, if I learn farming, for instance, does it disappear from the folder? No, it just grants you access to that same skill at a higher level. There have been geniuses in the world capable of feats beyond the reach of others, so you may become one of them. Honestly, it sounds like cheating. You'd be surprised, but it is cheating. We, the higher beings, worked on this system for millennia, as there is an immense variety of skills and abilities, along with different levels of mastery. It was designed so that each of you could shape yourselves as you see fit. For example, someone who dreamed of becoming a wizard might eventually learn the skill of magical absorption and actual magic, but that requires sacrifices elsewhere. So, if I always wanted to be a detective, I could learn the relevant skills. Exactly. But let me give you some advice. It's better to learn such skills in the worlds you visit. This way, you can level them up more efficiently with grace than you could otherwise. Nodding in thanks for the advice, I returned to the folder. Okay, let's choose skills. As I traced my finger over the word, it glowed, and the page went blank, only to quickly fill with new words. Skill names, short descriptions of how to acquire them, and their levels of mastery. Some skills were marked in grey, but I could still read them. For instance, steel muscles. It takes more time and effort for your muscles to fatigue or sustain micro-injuries. Additionally, this skill increases your strength and provides some protection. The method to acquire the skill involves boosting stamina and strength. Current mastery level, 0. The skill is not available to me yet. If you think about it, my strength and stamina should both triple. Where would an ordinary person get such capabilities? I wasn't particularly into sports, so, yeah, it seems Demetrius mentioned that one of his brothers prefers souls who were sports enthusiasts in life. I imagine they already have this skill. Regeneration. I don't need this skill yet, plus it requires good health. It makes sense if you have poor health, but high regeneration. A serious wound could be deadly. Regeneration doesn't come out of nowhere. It requires the body to expend its resources to recover. However, the skill level was at 1, so I asked Demetrius about it. Every living being is born with this skill. Otherwise, mortality rates would be higher, since you wouldn't be able to heal your wounds. I agree. Dying from a cut while chopping vegetables would be ridiculous. Dying from a shaving cut would be even worse. There are, indeed, a vast number of skills here. One is superior agility. I wonder if that means I could bend myself into a pretzel and snap back to normal. Not that I wanted to do it, just curious. Yogis seem flexible, but it always makes me wonder what if their muscles get stuck in that position. It would take a lot of swearing to get them unstuck. Getting trapped like that, honestly, that's scary. Although, maybe I'm confusing it with flexibility. There's also a skill called enhanced reflexes. At the highest level, it allows you to deflect some shots, although you won't be able to dodge a sudden shot. But I was drawn to 2 particular skills. Sturdy body basic skill. Slightly enhances all physical parameters, health, and fortifies the body. Immediately available. Current mastery level, 0. Iron health basic skill. Strengthens health, making it harder for viruses to take over your body. The skill can be improved by fighting off illnesses on your own. Immediately available. Current mastery level 0. Both skills will be useful for survival. Additionally, I can develop them on my own up to level 3, and with the help of this folder, up to level 5. Of course, even at level 5, they won't make me immortal, cut off my head, or pierce my heart, and I'll still die. These skills just increase my chances of surviving an attack and making it to a hospital, where I can be treated. But I can only choose one. So, if I choose sturdy body, I'll become slightly stronger and tire less quickly, albeit only slightly at first. If I end up in a fight, I did fight a few times in my teenage years, I can withstand more hits before reaching my pain threshold. At level 5, I might even be able to survive a knife wound, unless it's too close or too powerful. I could stop a small caliber bullet. A 9mm bullet would be a 50-50 shot, but from 5 steps away, it would either pierce me or get lodged in my body. I recall there's a skill called Stone Skin that could make an interesting combination. If I choose Iron Health, my body will be more resistant to illnesses from the start. At the first level, it will be harder for me to catch a cold, and even if I do fall ill, I'll recover more quickly. While an ordinary person takes 5 days to recover, I'll only need 3. The first level significantly speeds up my body's recovery, even if the illness progresses. At level 5, minor illnesses won't be an issue, and moderate ones will be as mild as a simple cough. Plague or the Spanish flu could still take me down, especially if I keep getting infected repeatedly. However, with good endurance and away from the infected area, I could recover on my own, though it would be difficult and unpleasant. With this skill, I could also handle certain doses of radiation. The choice is tough. After some thought, I ran my finger over the health skill. The letters lit up and began to evaporate into golden smoke, which absorbed into my eyes. It was as though I was absorbing the knowledge of the skill. Are you a mind reader by any chance? Demetrius asked as the smoke dissipated, and the folder vanished from my hands as well. No. What's happened? Nothing in particular. It's just your skill choice. Considering the world I was planning to send you to, well, never mind. Since you've chosen your first grace, let's move on to the next stage. A name. You'll need something to go by when you arrive, and leaving the choice up to the world itself might not yield a name you'll be happy with. Have there been such cases? I raised an eyebrow. Yes, sometimes a French name would be given to a German, or men would end up with women's names, and sometimes it would just be a string of letters. You'll want a name that suits you in the new world, and it's better to choose it yourself. I had to think about it. I didn't remember my past name, and now that I'd died, it was no longer relevant. I needed a new name that fit the circumstances. So, who would I be? A worker, a mercenary for God, sent to unknown worlds with mysterious tasks. The thought of a mercenary under the protection of God was almost amusing. Why not? The name was chosen, but what about a surname? I had traveled to various countries and heard many surnames, though I couldn't recall them all. My thoughts turned back to the skill I had chosen. Would I be as vulnerable as before, entering a new world and dying in my sleep without even attempting Demetrius's mission would be foolish. Castle Matheson, I said slowly, smiling. I liked it. You can call me Cass. Castle Matheson, Demetrius repeated, as if savouring the words. A Hebrew name meaning my shield god, and a surname meaning gift from God. An interesting choice. I can't tell if you're making fun of me or not. I just tried to choose something that fits the situation. No, nothing of the sort. Believe me, I've heard so many bizarre human fantasies that I stopped being surprised long ago. But your choice of first skill puzzled me, as you didn't aim for the highest goal. I recall one who sought immortality and couldn't understand why he couldn't find it. That's not attainable for humans. But not everyone realizes this. Someone sought to find the system, claiming it would grant them growth, but didn't consider it might be different, or that they couldn't improve it themselves. Others sought an absolute shield or a weapon capable of wiping out cities. It's a bit much, to be honest. I paused, observing Demetrius's amused expression. My thoughts quickly fell into place. The purpose of this folder isn't just about choosing grace, is it? The higher being laughed at my question. You're the 86th soul to figure this out, Kaz. Yes. It has another purpose to assess the essence of souls. Sometimes, gaining access to something powerful reveals hidden qualities that souls themselves are unaware of. Those who show signs of corruption are immediately returned to the circle of souls, and we must search for others. By the way, why do you seek ordinary souls, those without notable talents? Wouldn't it be better to choose those who excel at something? And what happens if I fail a mission and die in the world I'm sent to? Why, I believe that an ordinary person, properly honed, can become the strongest and complete missions successfully. If you fail and die, nothing particularly dramatic will happen. You just won't receive grace, and depending on the circumstances of your death, recovery time will vary. I remember one of your predecessors was killed by the soul blade and took nearly a year to recover. It was agonizing. The name of the weapon made me shudder. If even God says that recovering from the soul blade is agonizing, it's hard to imagine what that soul went through. I hope I don't encounter such enemies. These artifacts are likely found in special worlds and are rare, considering their ability to wound a soul like that. By the way, it just hit me. By the way, Demetrius, how will I exist in other worlds? I mean, I'm a spirit. No heartbeat, no breathing. Well, I could simulate the latter, body heat. Or will I be inhabiting other bodies? Don't worry about that. When you arrive in a new world, it will allocate you some energy to create a new body and clothing. Like an ordinary human body, yours can be harmed by falls, blows, cuts, and other injuries. The difference is that your body will form according to your skills, and there's a chance that scars you had before will reappear later. Additionally, part of your strength may be initially blocked if you are too powerful. Understood? So, the world will camouflage me, but won't take away my grace. Just weaken it. What about my identity? I'll appear suddenly, entering the world out of nowhere. We'll integrate you into the world's history. Your biography will mirror that of your first life, with some adjustments. In the future, you can add or completely change your story. Demetrius's face remained unchanged, but there was a hint of dissatisfaction in his voice. I think I understood why. Some people want to present themselves as heroes, trying to hide their failures and flaws. I even felt a bit sorry for Demetrius. He's had to deal with all kinds of human frailties. Well, I finally said, standing up from my chair, I think I've learned all I can. Nothing else comes to mind for now. It will be fascinating to see other worlds, though I might face challenges in game worlds. I've never been much of a gamer. With your adaptability, you'll get used to this quickly. I'm glad you accepted my offer, Kaz. Demetrius extended his hand, and I shook it, noting how odd it felt to shake hands with God. Yet, after everything that had happened, for a moment, our hands sparked with dark light. The contract was sealed. When do I begin? I think, right now. The higher being smirked and gave me a shove to the chest. As I fell backward, the cosmos around me vanished, and the sudden flash of light disappeared as soon as I landed in a chair. Instead of the cosmos, I found myself in a small room. It wasn't messy, but there was a general sense of clutter, with belongings strewn about. is much less than only a fool cleans up, a genius rules over chaos is much greater than came to mind as a sarcastic thought. Though I wasn't sure if I remembered it exactly, a quick look around showed that I was in a small studio apartment, apparently belonging to a bachelor. The small fridge was half empty, but contained a few cans of beer, a brand I didn't recognize, and a few non-alcoholic drinks labeled Juicy Raccoon. There wasn't much food, but there was enough for one person for about 3 days, as well as enough beer. It feels like I didn't die, but just fell asleep and had a strange dream. The room's just smaller. The room had a large mirror, probably for checking your appearance before heading out. I looked ordinary, maybe just a bit younger than I remembered. Grey eyes, dark hair. My body wasn't athletic, but there were faint hints of muscle from my morning workouts. Dressed in a white tank top and grey shorts, standard casual homewear. Not much had changed since I talked with Demetrius, although now I looked alive. As I examined myself, I realized something was missing. My left hand instinctively reached to the side of my neck. Oh right, I used to have a burn there, from spilling hot tea on myself as a child. The burn started just below my cheek, ran down my neck, and ended below my shoulder. It always bothered me, and I was only grateful that part of it had faded by the time I was 24. I'm not sure whether to thank Demetrius or the world itself, but thank you for removing that scar. My gaze caught a small flare off to the side. On the table next to an old computer, there was a sheet of paper with singed edges. Beside it was a diploma from a recent college graduation. It seemed I hadn't joined the army in this world either. Castle. It's January of '94 in this world. 4 years until the major events. I chose a world that allows for such a time frame, as it's your first mission, and you need time to prepare. In the future, there may be times when you'll have to jump straight into combat immediately after arriving. So, I decided to give you a head start for adaptation. You, or rather, your new body, are 20 years old, so the first events will occur at the age you died. In the future, there may be slight variations in your age, up to 4 years. As we discussed, you have memory issues due to your transfer to our realm. Don't worry, that will pass soon as you adjust. You might also remember the world you've entered. You have 4 years, so you can choose any path, even leave the city, but you must return at least 5 months before September 98. Do it on your own, because if the world brings you back, it will be unpleasant. As I said before, the world you visit may present you with different tasks. Survive and save as many people as you can. Once you complete a task, you'll return, though there's a chance the world might keep you for a while. This rarely happens. For now, don't dwell on it. Spend these 4 years on self-improvement. You'll receive a brief description of the world later. Good luck, Cass, and congratulations on your first mission. Demetrius. P.S. Eat the note. It can't be burned with ordinary fire. Ooh, rascal. I've tried a lot of things, but eating paper. I crumpled the paper in my hand, exhaled, and shoved it in my mouth. Surprisingly, the taste wasn't bad. It reminded me of the spicy fried chicken I love. All it needed was, now I feel alive, even if just temporarily. Beer after chicken is perfect. Cars rolled by outside, and people went about their business. The city seemed lively, but according to Demetrius, in 4 years, something might happen here that could kill me. Terrorists. War. I don't know yet. I watched the passers-by on the street, focusing on one of them. Why not? After all, police training is thorough enough that I shouldn't die right away if something happens, and there are already papers on the table for entering the police academy. For someone as homely as me, this will be tough. Tests, medical exams, interviews with a psychologist, then more than half a year of constant study. work, and training. This isn't the movies where cadets laze around. Well, I don't have much time. For someone as introverted as me, change isn't easy, and I have only 4 years to avoid dying in the upcoming events. It's time to start changing, and 3.5 years from now, I need to return to this city of raccoons.